Hello and welcome to the Passenger Seat Podcast, a podcast designed to fill your passenger seat with chat about classic cars, all recorded from my 1968 Morris Minor Peggy. I'm Becca, and today's episode was recorded a couple of days ago now. I'm back home, cars unloaded, but this weekend was the absolutely fantastic Classic Motor Show at the NEC, where they were celebrating 40 years. Now, I'm really fortunate that the Singer Owners Club had a car on their stand, but also a member on their stand who was integral to them being at the very first motor show and was able to talk to me about the 40th anniversary and share some of the fantastic experiences he's had with the car in the 40 years in between. It's so nice to talk to someone who has as much passion for his car as I do for mine, in terms of it being an absolute keeper, and to have him talk about why the show was so important back in 1984 and why the car and him felt the need to come back for this anniversary was a fantastic thing to be able to get recorded, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you. So without further ado, let me introduce George Turner from the Singer Owners Club. So I'm here with George Turner from the Singer Owners Club, and you are back here 40 years later with the same car on the same stand, the Singer Owners Club stand. What is it about the show 40 years ago that made you want to have the Singer Owners Club have a stand here?
Well, I think going back 40 years, looking back on it and reflecting, was the fact that there'd been a number of shows around the country. There was one used to be in Bristol, and I think there was one down in Brighton. So when they were having it in the middle of the country, I think the club felt that we should try and promote the Singer Owners Club, which had been going since 1951 anyway. And Ian Blackburn, whose car's next door, although sadly he's not with us, and myself, we organised this stand here. Quite primitive in some ways. We actually drove the cars down. But there was a huge sort of response. In those days at a show like this, you would see a lot more pre-war cars than you will today, because there were still quite fashionable people who'd have a Wolseley or a Riley or other more exotic cars like Bentleys or Bugattis. Yeah. But the humble Singer, along with the MGs, was a very popular car in the 50s and 60s, which people stood to go to as a daily driver. So, Ian and myself decided we would do it, and there's some pictures behind here of how we did it. The response was great, and the rest of it, as they say, is history.
Yeah, and what did you have on the stand in that first year?
Well, we had all pre-war cars, some that wanted a restoration were partly restored, and obviously Ian's, who was doing the trialling. This had only been finished about 18 months prior, because I finished it in 82. It was to show off the cars, the styles, the elegance, all the bright chrome work. This is obviously a 4-seater, but there was 2-seaters as well. It was a pleasure to do it.
Yeah, and it was 6.9/Le Manses, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, absolutely, yeah. No, it was very much those days, it was within the club. No disrespect to the Vogues and the others, they were still deemed to be relatively new.
Yeah,
40
only
years.
20 years old at that point.
Absolutely right.
Places,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting really, because having been around for quite a long time, when I've told the story many times, the fact that one of the first old cars I bought was a Rover 80, and I bought that in 77, and it was a 1960, so it was only 17 years old. So move it all on, and I thought, this is an old car, and you could take the family out in it. Move it on 40 years, and I can understand why people now want to buy something from the 90s, whether it be a BMW, a Mercedes, or whatever it is, and get that same enjoyment as I did driving my old Rover way back in 1977.
Yeah, and you still enjoy taking this one out and taking your grandson out in it?
Yeah, no. I mean, the history of the car is phenomenal in the fact that it's been in my family not quite 80 years in May. And in fact, I have a picture with me stood up with my hands on there as a child, and I think I might still even have my nappies on. My father bought it in the May of 45. The war in Europe had just finished, and it was a daily driver. He used to drive to his business, a garage in Formby, and the only reason it was taken off the road in 1950 was the fact my sister was born, and obviously, although there's a back seat, it wasn't particularly big to have 2 young children in the back. And it was put away in a garage in Ainsdale and spent the next 25 years there. And thankfully, when I was starting to become interested in old cars in the early 70s, my mum convinced my father that maybe George would like to restore it. I think father probably thought that I would have restore it and sell it. Thankfully, I had no intention of it.
Yeah, no, amazing.
And the rest of it is the fact that since it's been done, it's been pretty reliable. I think I've only once had to have a recovery, touch wood, and that wasn't the fault of the car. It was some dodgy fuel I got somewhere. And I've done about 15,000 miles in it since then. It's been into Lincolnshire, it's been over to Yorkshire, it's been up, well, all the way into what I call Westmoreland and places like that, Warwickshire and all over. And I've done probably about another 15,000 miles, which still means it's done less than 50,000 miles since
new. Oh my gosh. And that's amazing because it's been in your family for so long. You know that mileage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when the Speedo was rebuilt, it was something like 30,000 and something on it, and then I had quite a while when I couldn't get a new Speedo rev counter cable made. So it's done about another 15,000 miles since I've had it.
Yeah. And have you had to do much to it mechanically in terms of...
Well, I used to do, and thankfully within the club we have somebody called John Parker who knows these engines inside and out. And in fact, about 18 months ago, I had the engine completely rebuilt. We've got some new pistons that I think came from Australia there. It's been rebored, the crank's all been done. And the reason I did it was I thought that, getting a bit long in the tooth myself, maybe the car was as well. And that when I'm no longer here, I can actually think that it's still in pretty good road condition. But the nice thing that's happened is the fact that John has put a water pump on it, which means that it circulates the water around. Instead of it getting very, very hot, which a lot of these modern fuels do, I just flick a switch and the temperature gets down and it runs like a treat. It's fantastic.
Oh. And this sort of open top 30s motoring, there's nothing like it in terms of having a really nice drive out on a sunny day or even an autumnal day and just kind of...
No, I mean, I have had it on the motorways. I won't take it anywhere near motorways. I think the last time I had it on a motorway was in 16 when I came back from a Seagrave event at Southport, which obviously he raced on the beach in 26 and did the land speed record there. And I did bring it back for about 12 miles on the motorway, but now I'd stay clear unless I absolutely had to do it. But a nice country lane, you'll trudle along 45, 50 mile an hour. I mean, it's open top motoring, no safety belts, no power steering, no this. But it puts a smile on my face. And what's more, when my grandson's in this car, which he calls it Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, to him laughing and giggling, you can't bottle that. You've just got those memories.
No, and the seating position as well. You feel so close to the road that you feel kind of really part of it as it's going along.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, there are times when you have to go over sleeping policemen and things like that with a little bit.
And you feel that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the suspension is it's pretty good, really, but there are certain obstacles that you have to be a bit careful with. But that's how it was then. In fact, actually, the roads probably are better in some ways now than they were in the 30s.
I think it depends on where in the country you are, because around me, they're not great. But
you are constantly looking on the road to see which potholes you need to avoid. But no, I mean, it's a generational thing. I mean, I feel very privileged to have had this car for such a long time. And I actually still enjoy this kind of motoring. Yes, I like my modern motoring as well. But, to take this out, do 40, 50 miles. I mean, sometimes I'll just take it out and I'll do what I call a little run from my home. I'm away for about an hour and 20 minutes, probably do about 40, 45 miles. And I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And how has the show changed, do you think, since the 1984 show?
It's bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot bigger. And it's more commercial. But that's part of the modern world. I think when I look back, I've been back to this show quite a few times. In fact, I think the car's been back here since then, and I've actually...
I think it came, was it the year or the second year?
Yeah.
Because I think Buttercup did the year after, and then this came the year after that, I think, from the club magazines I was looking at.
Yeah, I mean, but I think it's been again since then. I know it was in the 90s or the 2000s, I'm not quite sure. But I mean, the actual show itself, I think, this old car movement is a huge industry. whether you're selling insurance or having some chromium plated or buying a car or want to know where you want to get some tyres or get some free advice. And when you have so many stands here, behind me there's with the C5 Sinclairs, every one you'd ever imagine. And that was kind of an electric vehicle in 1985. Kind of. I mean, Enfield had made an electric car before that. Oh, and by the way, there were electric milk floats as well. But what I'm about to say, if you're interested in having an old car, and I don't mean of this age, something from the 90s, come to a show like this, talk to people. You'll get some good advice, and it might just help you to make a decision of which type of car you want to buy.
And I think a lot of the time, meeting the people that own the cars is really important, because you realise whether they're your sort of people, because they're the people that you're going to be relying on when you're new to a car, as to where do I get these parts from, what's this issue, how do I...
You're absolutely right, and I'm a member of other clubs and makes of cars as well. But if you look at the Singer Club, I mean, I'm just looking at our representative that have been in the club. I mean, Gifford and Martin, who sadly no longer was new for a long time. Arthur, when we go back a long way, and John Payne over there, he used to come to my garage business in Formby in the 70s because he had a Singer. So we've got a lot of knowledge here that we help people. We have spares. Sadly, Dave Hardwick's no longer with us, but there's still a backup of stuff that you can get and made. So most things are available, and most things will keep you on the road because you can.
And just because I think you're probably the best person to tell us a little few bits about Buttercup, because obviously Buttercup was here 40 years ago as well. It's quite an unusual car. It's got a bit of a name for itself.
Well, it has. I mean, God bless Ian. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Ian. He was very good with the cars across the board. In fact, he had a restoration business called 9 Workshop, and he did some work on this for me when I was in the process of putting back together brakes and things.
He did some work on Dad's as well, not long after he'd got it.
Absolutely. But the true story of it is, he can't challenge me, but he once told me the reason why it was painted that colour and became Buttercup. He was going to an event somewhere in Europe and was on one of the docksides down in Dover or Folkestone, and he went into the local Woolworths and got a tin of paint which was that colour and painted it on the dockside.
Amazing.
And then drove it onto the boat with the paint still wet. But yeah, I mean, it's well known that there's probably very few, well, there's no other Singer that's done well over 200,000 miles, probably even more than that.
And challenging miles as well, with them being on VSCC trials and things like that.
I mean, he loved it, and I mean, some of the things that he did with that car beggars belief that any car would do it. I think the probably only things that seem a worse challenge is probably doing the Peking to Paris rally. And I think if he'd have been up for that, I think he might have even tried to do that, although that comes at a cost. But no, I mean, he was well known for that car. And actually, after he passed away, it went to a very good friend of mine, Adam Sykes, and we took it to a VSCC event at Cadwell Park. And I think the scrutineers were somewhat relaxed in allowing to go around Cadwell Park in it. But we had some great fun with it, and Ian loved it. Ian would have loved it to see it being done in a different way than the way he'd used it.
Yeah, and it's now back with someone who takes it trialing and stuff like that. And I think it's fantastic that people who have bought it afterwards know the story of it, because it's so well known, and are respecting that's what it's for.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the nice things, and I think other clubs will probably say there's a number of cars within the Singer Car Club that still people actively use in VSCC events and local trials as well. And not everybody wants a show queen, not everybody wants to have it like this. I mean, I would dread to think that actually I'd get it muddy like that, but I have to say it looks immaculately clean today, but I've seen this car pretty dirty. But as I say, it's a nice old lady, and I think it's nice to have the comparison between one that's actively used in trials and still is, and one that I enjoy driving, and I shall carry on as long as I can drive it.
And you have kind of semi-retired, because you had a very interesting career in TV and stuff like that, but you've semi-retired, but you've still got your kind of involvement with motoring a little bit, aside from the car, obviously.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I have, I mean, some people may or may not know, I've helped out for a number of years in the auction car business. I worked for another auction house before I joined Manor Park some 4.5 years ago. Manor Park is fairly new on the block, but we have our own premises in Runcorn, where people can bring the cars. We have 7 sales a year, and I kind of know quite a lot of people, and they say, well, can we sell this car? Would you like to sell it? We value the car. We get the car as soon as possible to our premises, and I think, well, I've had quite a number of singers, and I think there's only one singer that I've had in that's not sold, but that's there's everything from 9s, 4ADs, like that singer to 10. But I get other pre-war cars as well, and some post-war cars as well.
What advice would you give to someone who was looking to buy a singer from an auction?
Well, I think there's 2 things, and I think this is across the board. First of all, are you a person that really would like to drive and own an oldish car? Now, there are people that will maybe not want to buy one quite as old as this, but there are people who want to buy a post-war singer, 4AD particularly. Now, why I say 4AD, it was the top of the range in 1955, 1500cc engine, so it will keep up with modern traffic, and the spares are fairly readily available.
Yes, because the club's got a big collection of the Roadster spares
absolutely
as well.
We have. So if somebody said to me, I'm interested in buying a singer, I'd ask them, what do you want to do with it? Now, they might say to me, oh, well, we'd like to take it out for picnics and want to go up in the Yorkshire Dales it is. This will do it, but if you've been driving a modern car, think about buying a post-war singer and then source it. Don't buy necessarily the first one you see. But if you go to auction, whichever auction house you see, whether it's Derrick at Banner's Castle, Manor Park, or some of the other auction houses, there's about 30 odd of them in Britain, so the choice is huge. Read what the car's about. If you've got chance, go and see the car. If it's got any history files. So if somebody was looking to buy a car like this and saw the amount of history file that I have with this car, you would be fairly confident that it's there, because I've got the build sheet from when it was built in 1937. I know who had the car, the person who bought it second, obviously my father. I've got paperwork, photographs, whatever. So history is important. And another thing that I often think is that sometimes, and it's not always set in stone when we say, but if you see a car, try and find out how long the person's had it. So if they've had it 5 or 6 years, have to be a member of a club, have a look at the history file.
And actually, with like a 4AD, Ashley Crossland's incredibly knowledgeable on the Roadsters.
He's written books.
So he will know a lot of them that are out there, and will be able to give you even more kind of a bit of a nod about what sort of situation they've been in.
Exactly. Now, so then it comes down to people spending some money, right? Now, what I mean with that is the fact that to restore a car like this, if you bought a barn find like this, let's presume that it's all there, everything, right? I think to do it properly, even if you had to have some woodwork done, wings, you could spend 50 or 60,000 pounds.
Oh, easily, absolutely.
Right. I mean, I've told this story once again today. When I came to restore the radiator and the 5 knock-on hubcaps, spinners, it went to a chromium plater in Bridgewater in Somerset and cost more, those 6 items, than the car cost new. It was £205.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it ain't got any cheaper, that's for sure. You could spend probably £4,000 or £5,000 just on chromium plating. If that rev counter was missing, they're unbelievably different to that.
Yeah.
£750 at least to get that, because it's a genuine Jaeger one. So if you buy one and it's complete and needs restoring, remember, you've got to go and be writing out quite a lot of checks. Yes, you can paint it yourself. Yes, you might be able to wire it yourself. But at some stage you will have to.
And it depends on what you're getting it for. If you're getting it because you want to learn the skills and find out how it all goes together and you enjoy the restoration process, then you doing the work and stuff like that's going to make a big difference. But if you're buying a car that you're hoping in a year's time you're going to be able to go out and enjoy those afternoon picnics, you're looking for a very different car, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's funny really, because when I used to come to various shows around, and before I got this car completed, and I said this to somebody earlier on today, he talked to me, oh, I've got a singer. Oh, what's that? Oh, well, I've just started to restore it. This is in like 75, 76. Little did I think it'd take me 7 years to do it. You cannot do it unless you spend night and day, week in, week out, to do it in less than probably 3 years. because that's what time it takes. But I think it can be very rewarding. I mean, my wife, God bless her, she would tell you the time when the radiator shell was under the bed and the headlamps were in boxes and things were in the wardrobe, which it makes me laugh now with what we did. But that's what you did. You've got everything. The nice thing when you get to a car is, and I can remember this in late 1980, early 81, after it had been painted, starting to put on the bright shiny bits like the windscreen, and putting the dashboard. I remember getting the varnish from this from a model exhibition at Wembley, and I didn't want it to look over lacquered, and that was done in about, I don't know, 77, 78. So I think at the end of it, as much as you can do yourself, remember the wheels, I took them to a place in Liverpool, they're not there anymore now, called Stevenson's. They re-spoke them and everything, and then I took them home and painted them, and I did it outside, and they've stood the test of time ever since. So it's getting the fun of doing it. I mean, you can't do it when you're 80 or nearly 80, but when I was in my 30s, it was great fun. And even though I did have this life of living out of a suitcase, I somehow managed to find time to do it as well. Which is, it's the fun of it. It's the camaraderie. In 17, after Singer National Day, which was in the northwest, I think it was 21 or 22 cars went to the Isle of Man. Now, I've got a lot of affection for the Isle of Man for many reasons, which this podcast should not go into. Other than the fact that my father and mother went there on the honeymoon in 1941. But to take this car over there for 5 days and go to many of the places that I know they went to, Peel, Douglas, Ramsey and the like, and have it photographed coming around the TT circuit and things like
Amazing.
that. It's priceless.
And having a car that you're enjoying doing the trips in makes such a difference, because you're stopping and you almost take more photos of the car in the places than you sometimes do yourself. But it feels extra special, because I do all sorts of trips in the Morris Minor, and it's a holiday in the car, but it's the experience of doing it in a vehicle that you absolutely love adds something completely extra.
Well, that's the whole point of it, because the fact the Isle of Man was something special. But when I think that when I drove this car, probably the last time, a serious long way, we drove it over to Lincolnshire, an event that Martin Ray had organised, and we went to East Irby where the Lancaster Bomber is, and that was probably about 170 miles from home. Now to see that and have a picture of this under the Lancaster Bomber was just fantastic. Great memories, because you can't see it was superimposed or blue screen when we drove it there. And there were roads that I knew fairly well, no motorways for sure. And you'd be driving along the A17 or the A47 and you'd have lorries coming past you and then stopping and then peering out and trying to see what it is.
Because work out the badge.
Well, hopefully, not leaving much space if you have to brake quickly. But it can give other people pleasure. And yes, you'll have a silly grin on your face unless it stops. But no, I mean, the memories are about everything. So people that might like to go golfing or skiing or whatever it is, I for sure and my family have had enormous fun in the ownership of this car. One of the things I can remember with this car when in 1947-48 was going through the Mersey Tunnel, and to this day there's a little blue dash light that shines down on here, and I'd be sat in the back there and you'd see that rev counter flicking round, because that's how it does, just from that. And it was about 10-11 years ago, there was a celebration of the Mersey Tunnel, one of them being opened in 34, and we took it back and I drove it through the Mersey Tunnel. And in fact we got stuck on the bottom because somebody put a central lorry in with all the smoke and the extractor fans, so we had to sit up right on the very bottom, the flattest bit through the tunnel. But to do that, I'm thinking, I did it. We went, got the chance to do the rally and all of that. So all those memories, I can't remember where I put my glasses 5 minutes ago. That's short-term memory, but I can remember a lot of the other things.
And that's the thing, that when you buy a car like this, or any of the cars in these halls, you're not just buying the car, you're buying the experiences that it's going to let you have afterwards.
I think one of the things I've always, in my working life as well, I've always believed that one of the reasons I've learned as much as I have is actually talking to people. So even in my television career, when I was very junior, way back in the early 60s, I was working with people that worked in the feature industry, cameramen in particular, and you could see they had enormous knowledge. Now, they didn't write books or anything like that. You'd sit and you'd spend time, maybe at lunchtime or staying in a hotel, and you'd talk to them about when they worked on such a film or wherever it is, watch how they lit things. And this has very much been the same with the old car situation. So I've always felt that if somebody wants and says to me, oh, do you know somewhere you can get chrome plating? Or do you know somewhere where you can get some electrical winder? Do you know which paint shop? This has been painted in old-fashioned paint. And you help people wherever you can, because I've been helped at some stage, and somebody else at some stage will need that knowledge and pass it on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's nice when you get people like Anthony and all the books that have been written, because once they say something's in print, it's there forever, which is true. And the people that have got that knowledge to put it down, I mean, when I drop down dead, hopefully not today, it's gone to the grave, but not all of it's gone to go home.
Well, no, some of it's on this podcast now.
Well, that's true as well, but I mean, it is just a kind of, I like the family part of this. I get people that do yachting, they'll have some fantastic things. I know people that sail the world and spent months doing it, or people that went to Australia and decided they'd try and drive around it in 6 months and took 3 years to drive around Australia. I like all of that, but for me to come here, to be here now, 40 years on, I'm thinking to myself, yes, where has 40 years of my life gone? I'm still upright, I'm still enjoying having an old car.
Still enjoying the same car.
Yeah, but it's embracing modern technology as well. So we've got a little camera there. Now, when I started, you had a great big film camera that weighed about 40 pounds. The film lasted 10 minutes. You'd have to have it developed, then you'd have to have a projector, and then after that, God knows whatever happened to it. Now, if we wanted to, this is going out. You could make it go out to the world right now.
Yeah.
And that's this modern world that we live in.
And it's the thing as well about looking at the photos that you provided of the show 40 years ago, and then you think about the amount of content that's being created at this show for YouTube, for Instagram, for the social media and stuff. There will be people that are in completely different countries that are seeing what's here right now, because of how much has changed.
Well, it is interesting how it works. I mean, my son, he just recently, there was a picture that was posted of me from my television career, and somebody questioned through Richard's social media, is that your dad? And of course it was, and I hadn't even seen the picture before.
Yeah, because it would have been the one copy that someone had in a drawer somewhere, and that was it.
It is. Now, the important thing about all this is me being extremely sentimental. I have thousands and thousands of pictures I've taken of cars, but I've also, over the last few years, built up quite a nice photographic records of things like old postcards. So, like, for example, in the sort of early 1900s, you might see a view of Canterbury or Diss, and you'll see where there's a Singer bicycle shop.
Yeah.
So they have the round over that said Singer Cycles, and there's Shepton Mallet, and I've got a number of those. Then I've also been collecting postcards where there are cars when you could have your car on a postcard, particularly in the 20s, and you'd send it to your Uncle Tom or wherever it is. Well, I've got quite a lot of those, so I've kind of slightly diversified, but it's actually still got that word Singer.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with sewing machines.
Absolutely not, no.
Except below your feet is
They make very good car mats, don't they?
And there's one below your feet.
Yes, yeah, Dad's the same. The rubber mats that came with the sewing machine.
There's two sorts.
Yes.
There's the one that goes on the treadle,
yeah,
and there's the one that is a longer one that you can put on the tabletop so as it wouldn't scratch it.
Yes.
I've got both.
They're very useful, and that's the only sewing machine relation between the cars. That we all want the rubber mats.
The font is the same, but in fact, I think the Singer sewing machines, when they were made in Britain, there was a factory in Glasgow. And I think it started in the early 1900s, but I know it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
But I think that, going back though, back to the George Singer thing, a lot of people were starting to made all kinds of different machinery, sewing machinery and netting machinery, and then this new thing, the bicycle came out, well, penny farthings, and they think, oh well, we'll embrace this new thing, and some failed, succeeded. Singer did very well. They were one of the early ones way back in 1875, and then they progressed through bicycles and into motorcycles, then into cars around about 1905 or 6. So it's been for me over this long journey. I've got motorcycle brochures, I've got car brochures, I've got cycle brochures, And the earliest brochure I've got is about 1880, which is quite a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
And it's just every now and then, oh, I'll get that folder out. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, yes, that's it. And you know, I don't want to say I'm an authority on singer, nowhere near a lot of some of these people in the club, but it's educated my mind, and I've enjoyed doing it, and I'll keep doing it as long as I can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for letting me sit in your car and having a fantastic chat with you. Yeah. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the 40th anniversary show.
Well, I will indeed. At least I've been able to sit down and save my feet from standing up.
It is a good bonus, isn't it?
Yeah, these seats are quite comfortable.
They are, yeah, very good.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. So I hope you enjoyed that little interview with George. He was absolutely fantastic at talking about his experiences of a classic motor show, and also his experiences of owning a pre-war Singer, and what to look for as well if you're looking to buy your own car, either at auction or otherwise. It's been fascinating to talk to him and a few other people over the weekend about their experiences of the Classic Motor Show. And you know that I recorded a live episode at the Classic Motor Show and got incredibly fortunate with some of the guests that were in the audience for me to pick out, and that will be coming out as a bonus episode this weekend, so that you still get the regular amount of podcasts recorded in historic vehicles, but this special one recorded in the podcast lounge at the NEC will be a little bonus extra for you guys. So this is us back for Series 8. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we've got lots of fantastic things to come. In the meantime, drive safely and happy motoring.